my humble beginnings begin in Cincinnati, Ohio. I was born in a community called Mount Arvin, kind of mixed. It's right off of our downtown community. My mom struggled with poverty. She lost her parents very young, and so we moved around a lot. I went to 17 schools, 4 colleges. I've lived in 4 states. We moved because simply, even if we were in a 1-bedroom, sometimes she just couldn't afford the rent. We had never lived in like the housing projects as a young person. We always found places that would rent to my mom, and once you've had evictions, you get, the places aren't always the best. We dealt with lead poisoning. My brother had some of the highest numbers in the state, just from, he was born in 78, I was born in 77. We spent a lot of time playing and stuff together, and we started getting sick, and it couldn't be explained, and it was equated to the lead poisoning. But we moved around a lot. We just wanted a place to call our own. I got so used to changing environments, changing sceneries, meeting new friends, meeting new people. But education was the great equalizer. It was a place where I went and I felt as whole as I could feel at that moment. I don't think I felt completely whole, but I felt connected to something. I felt like it was about what I can learn and what I can do. And I love school. So for that reason, I never wanted to miss school. Also, it was where we got our most consistent meals. We knew that we can count on those school meals, so that gave us an even better incentive. I remember days where we were latchkey kids. We were home alone a lot by ourselves. And some days when we didn't have laundry, I would take one of my mother's shirts, put a belt on, and wear that to school just to make sure I get to school, and drag my sister and brother out to school. I'm a middle child. My mother had 3 kids. My sister is 2 years older than me. My brother is a year younger than me. But for my father, I'm his only child. We all had our own father. But we never looked at each other as stepped or half. For us, we came out of the same womb. We had the same mom. We had the same struggles. We grew up together. So it was those relationships I value the most is with the family you create, the family you're a part of was very important. And my father was in and out. He spent 40 of his 56 years on this earth in and out of jail. So he died in 2015. But when I was younger, because I was his only child, he had brothers that would come by while he was in prison to check on me. He wrote me amazing letters. He never missed a birthday, whether he was in or out, to acknowledge my birthday. He would, I guess, have somebody in prison draw a card, and he would send that to me. I think he wanted to be a better father. Before he died, he said, "You're the best thing I did with my life." And that was so moving to me. But I think it also gave me energy to do something, to be different, to be more than what society and the statistics say, right? But that didn't stop me from experiencing all the things that come with poverty, experiencing not having enough to eat, not having a stable place to sleep. And also, I ended up having a baby very young. My first child was at 15 years old. That came out of a result of sexual assault, rape from my stepfather. At 14, and then found myself, we were taken out, had to go stay in a foster home. And then my father got out of prison, and I was able to go live with him right after we were dealing with the court process, because they took us from my mother because the abuse happened with my stepfather while we all were living together. So I had to testify before a grand jury. My stepfather went to prison. And I just felt like a lost Black girl for about, I guess those 5 or 6 years around that process of finding who I was, understanding my sexuality, understanding life, understanding my faith. Because I feel like my innocence was taken from me by my stepfather. I had no ownership on what happened to my body. I know for a lot of people, teenage pregnancy is the worst thing, and it happens in that way. But for me, it gave me a will to live. It made me want to do something different. And I think that that's where my fight for life came. You're stuck in fight or flight. You're stuck in survival mode. I didn't know what thriving is. I'm just now at 48 learning what thriving is. I'm just now learning that I don't have to make the decisions I used to make to survive. So it's a day-to-day thing. You're not even thinking 30 days down the road. You're thinking, what do I need to get through to today? What can we eat? There was times where I didn't have enough money to feed myself and my kids. I chose to feed the kids. It meant, a lot of sacrifice. That instability meant nothing was guaranteed day to day. Every day I had to fight to make sure we can get through the day. Then I had to fight to make sure we could get through the week. And then I could fight to make sure we get through the month. At no point in time had I made any yearly goals. I didn't have the ability to think past a few months, past the, and so because of that, that struggle means you make decisions that are decisions of poverty, decisions that come because you don't know what your options are, decisions that are like, why am I doing this? Of course, when you become an adult, you don't want that to be your story, but it became my story because we clearly were chronically dealing with being unhoused for most of my life. I decided I needed something different. I had come down to Louisville several times over the years for Derby, different concerts, different things like that, just in, learning about Louisville. It was 100 miles away from Cincinnati, and I said, I had a car, I had some savings. I said, you know what? If it doesn't work, I can come back. It's 100 miles away. So I literally got on MapQuest. That's dating this, right? MapQuest, looked it up, and I found the extended stay out on Breckenridge Lane. And I called them, and I was like, because they have a little kitchenette. They have one big bed. And I was just like, okay, we can stay here until I'm able to secure the housing. And mapped it out, had all the plans, load my kids up, put my stuff in storage, and drive down to Louisville. I get here on August 8th of 2002. I'm 25 years old. I'm pregnant with the fourth daughter. The guy says, I stop at the gas station, I get that, and then I go move into the hotel. Well, I got down here earlier, the hotel started to go up after about a month and a half. And it's very expensive to stay in a hotel on a weekly basis. But I stayed there as long as I could. And then when the rates went up, I was worried that we were going to be out on the street. So I started to call around and people referred me to the Center for Women and Families, to Wayside. But while we were there, people came in because of my heart condition and I needed heart medication. I qualified for Phoenix Health to come in to get medical care and to get my medications. While I was there getting those medications, one of the social workers connected me to the homeless assessment, and I did the homeless assessment. And I let them know that, one, I'd been homeless before, we had, all the things that had happened, but also that I had a medical condition and my kids had a medical condition. And they said that there's a program you may qualify for. And I said, hey, what is that program? So this was in 2014. This was right before Derby. I will never forget. It was right before Derby weekend that I came and I was dealing with that. But they said, well, you qualified for our Homes with Hope program. And I said, what does that come with? Like case management, permanent supportive housing. And I said, through who? And they said, St. Vincent de Paul. I said, yes, sign me up. So I did a whole process, filled out the application, and got a case manager and started from there. They had a great transition program. They didn't have room for my family size at the campus because we are a bigger family, so we had to find a scattered site. So I had to go out. I had this voucher to go out and find some housing, and I needed something on a bus line because my car had gotten taken. So I found a place at Hemlock and Southern, 5 bedrooms, 2 baths, and I was just like, this is great. I could get on a bus line. So participating and joining in with the St. Vincent de Paul really changed my family because my kids not only had us being able to secure housing, but they had a community with the after-school programs, with the summer programs. We even started a cooking program. We're working with different moms because I was saying to them, why, when I'm dealing with homelessness, people want to put me in financial literacy classes when I'm not here because I didn't make good choices with money. I'm here because I didn't have enough money. And so I talked to the St. Vincent de Paul folks and I said, look, here's what I could use to help me as a mom surviving and striving through this. How do we feed our family in the most healthy way possible? How do we connect? And St. Vincent de Paul had just had that building where they got the kitchen renovated and they had these these portable burners. So literally we can hold cooking classes. And that's exactly, and I made that suggestion and we did that. They asked me to go speak and share about my work. I did that. But my family, for the first time in our lives, gained stability by participating in St. Vincent de Paul's Homes with Hope program and their after-school programs. That is the first time that my family has seen consistent stability, and it made a difference in the grades. I had 2 kids graduate while we were in the transitional housing program. They graduated high school, they went on to college, and all of my kids did better academically. The boys joined the wrestling team. Now they're on the wrestling team at Central High School. But all of this connection and the community that we built came from our participation with St. Vincent de Paul. I was with the Homes with Hope program from 2014 until 2018. My husband moved back and we bought a house under his name. But yes, so for those 4 years were some of the most, it created stability in my family we had seen, because I wanted the kids to finish school, and because of that we qualified for funding for the, I always mess it up, the McKinney-Bento funds, and they partnered with JCPS's homeless services program. So my kids, even though we had to move, were still able to stay in their high schools and still able to go to school and get the transportation they needed. I was able to go back to work. I started doing my consultant business. I started just growing because I was able to feel, yes, for the first time in my life, I was able to feel secure enough to venture out and to do the things that I have already wanted to do. And because we got the housing created, I had case managers. Some of them said, why am I your case manager? You clearly don't need, but I had 3 amazing case managers, 2 of which I'm still connected to through social media, through my other work. We see each other, but the case management was great. I think having the Homes of Hope program, having the case management, having the after-school programs, my kids got to experience cultural trips. They got to go to do things. They got to grow. They became Student of the Month several times at the center. We built relationships with some of the people who were there as staff. They got to join in, and they got to feel that community I had wanted when I was a young child and a young adult. They got to experience that. And I'm telling you, the success we've seen in our family can be accredited to that, because 10 years, it was devastating to become homeless 10 years later. So I was homeless in 2002. And then basically in 2012, I was homeless again, but we moved to Miami. We dealt with a bunch of stuff. But when I moved back in 2014, it was so humbling. I'm literally sitting on boards and doing work in the community with people who are millionaires, people who are stable, people who have housing. And I have to go back to the shelter. I have to go to St. Vincent de Paul. But it was very humbling for me because I didn't plan it. I literally made a decision because my dad was sick to take care of him. Well, that put me back into homelessness. And the second time, even though I had to go through Wayside, the second time being introduced to a lot of the amazing programming that St. Vincent de Paul had is the reason why I'm sitting here today as an elected Louisville Metro Councilwoman. It started the process of focusing on who I was and what I can do, using my experiences and my education to be a difference and to make a difference in the community. It started with that work and being supported by St. Vincent de Paul. It is a series of smaller, successful transitions. That is the only way. That's why even when I made a decision to get back with my husband, when he came back, he said, I want to buy a house. I said, you work on that. I got housing. I'm figuring things out. For St. Vincent de Paul telling me that as a part of Homes with Hope program, and because of my medical condition and because of everything I experienced, I was able to start a business. And even if that business failed, I still qualified for permanent supportive housing. I've never heard anything like that before. I never heard that. So I said, yeah, what if I did the move up. So I stayed with the program. I went through the case management, and then they said, you can transfer to the move up program. That means you don't have to continue to get case management. You've achieved all those goals. Now you get to move out and just have the regular Section 8. So I was an example of doing that. And even in that transition, I will tell you, it got scary when I was about to move out of that, because I was like I told you about before, was the rug going to be pulled out from under me? Would I have support? What if it doesn't work? What if I go and do this and then I end up homeless again? I've already experienced it so many other times. And it really gave me a stronger footing to understand in this transition, if things didn't work out right, I still had housing. I still had housing support. That to me was the most remarkable part of that. I had housing support that was, of course you got to jump through some hoops and answer some paperwork, but I knew that I would never have to be homeless again because I was able to navigate the Homes with Hope program with St. Vincent de Paul. Never had those words hit me, right? I was going to fight to do what I need to do anyway and to not come back to homelessness. But that gave me another step. So anybody that's been successful in transitioning out of homelessness into stability and permanent supportive housing and home ownership, which is what I've done, has because there's a lot of successful goals and transitions that help me make that. So every time I'm able to make a step, when my kids graduated, when I started my business, I grew that business, then I started work. Everything that I was able to do, I didn't have to do it worrying about, will I lose my housing tomorrow? Will I lose it the next day? It was never about not paying my part or not doing my part. It was about, you can start to build up, especially when you've been marginalized and you've had fixed income and you start to make income. You don't qualify for a lot of things, and that was my fear. And I even said that to my case manager. She was like, you seem a little anxious, because I've been here before. When I did it 10 years ago, I let it go. Me and my husband got married. I didn't think I would ever need housing support again. I don't want to be back here again in the same way. She was like, Shameka, you're here. Because you qualify, you have permanent supportive housing. So if it doesn't work out, you can come back and get housing support again. That to me gave me the fuel I needed to okay, we could take these chances. I can run a business. I can make decisions. I can go back to school. I can do all these things, and I can help my kids transition. So I think that is the difference. I see it in my children. The older three experienced all the homeless issues. All of them have experienced it. The oldest three have experienced it more, and they're even being stable now. But the younger three, those days are way behind them. They haven't seen it. I mean, my older kids say that they're my struggle kids, and they say the younger three are my mortgage kids. It is true. And you see the difference in how they navigate and how I had never seen anything like that in my life, because by the time I reached housing, I had achieved more than both of my parents had ever did. I had to bury my father. I had to pay for his funeral. I was able to do that because I had that supportive housing. I had to raise the money, get the money together, but I got to if my mother dies tomorrow, she doesn't have housing. She's on a fixed income. I would have to pay for her funeral as well. I didn't choose to be that, but I'm a person like many people who are my age and more, where we don't get land and things passed down to us because our family struggles so much. So we have a great deal of responsibility for the generation before us, the generation we're in, and the generation that's after us. And so building that stability makes me be what I didn't have. It makes me I'm becoming the matriarch in my family that I never got to experience. And that is what stability looks like. And I never thought I wanted to own a house. I told you, I didn't think past the month or two. When I got to that level, I said, wow, this is what it feels like. I never saw any of that. I just wanted them to survive and live. And now we get to see futures. We get to see careers. We get to participate together, because these are the gifts that keep giving. I think when somebody makes a donation, they don't know where it goes, but my family is proof of how far those donations go and continue to go. And now I'm able to give back. Now I'm in a position where I donate to several organizations, where I participate, where I'm able to hire people from the communities, where I manage teams, I manage budgets. And now as an elected official, I get to make policies and laws that help improve and save lives. And I get to make decisions to help make sure organizations like St. Vincent de Paul and people who are doing the services and care with compassion get the support that they need. So I am exactly why we do this work. I am an example of that. I think often people think it's hopeless. You might see somebody panhandling on the street and you think that's just going to get them through the day. There's more to it when you support an organization like St. Vincent de Paul. It's not just a day. It's not just a month. It's not just a year. Because the last time I was homeless was in 2014. And now we're 2025. And I also bought a small piece of property to be able to turn into a place for my kids to live. because I don't ever want them to experience homelessness. That is the gift that keeps giving. I don't know who donated back then, but I know that me and my family benefits every day from that, and we never take that for granted. That is the gift that keeps giving, the generations that will be impacted by the legacy, by the donations that started even before I joined St. Vincent de Paul in 2014.